The only sound in the control room was the steady hum of hundreds of servers, cold mechanical, like a swarm of iron bees, buzzing inside your skull. The blue glow from the strategy screens cast ghostly reflections on pale faces, painting a map that blinked red like rupturing blood vessels. A single engineer gasped for breath sweat, beading on his forehead. The air reeked of burnt coffee and suffocating tension. In the center of the room stood Isabella Thorne. Upright, her shoulders hard as stone, her face emotionless. Her hand hovered above the emergency shutoff. Bright red isolated on a faded control panel. "Cut it." Marcus Cole's voice slipped into her ear, soft but sharp. He stood close beside her, his eyes lit with a barely hidden satisfaction. "Cut it, Isabella. We're out of time." She didn't answer. She wasn't seeing the screen in front of her. She was seeing her father standing in this very room 10 years ago, beaming with pride as he introduced Aegis as the future of humanity. Now that same system had gone rogue. An automated sequence was about to cut power to the entire West Coast. If she hit the button, it wouldn't just end a project, it would be the death of a career, the death of belief. CEO Thorne, a trembling engineer, spoke up. "We need a decision. Now." No one noticed the man in the corner of the room. A janitor in a grey uniform pushing a mop. He wasn't looking at the floor. He was looking at the screen. A small string of code ran in the bottom left corner. Pale green. Leo Vance blinked. It wasn't a system error. It wasn't a bug. It was the wrong question, a flawed assumption. He swallowed hard, then spoke, voice low and steady. "Don't. You're looking at this the wrong way." The room froze. All eyes turned to him, surprised, confused, and dismissive. Isabella turned. She looked at him like someone spotting a mosquito in a board meeting. Her icy blue eyes pierced straight through him. "What did you just say?" Leo didn't look away from the screen. He stepped forward. Not fast, not shaky. "There's something you're not seeing," he said. In that moment, the hum of the servers seemed to slow. A night shift janitor had just altered the course of an entire crisis. The control room door closed. A strange silence settled in. No more clicking keyboards, no more judging stares. Leo stood alone in a long, dim corridor, the flicker of fluorescent lights above his head. But to him, this wasn't the silence of a tech company. It was the familiar sound of that fateful night. The night, everything collapsed. The memory crashed down. His wife was in the passenger seat, softly humming Maya's favorite lullaby. A traffic light is blinking yellow. One heartbeat. Their self-driving car slammed the brakes too late. A truck from the left couldn't stop in time. The screech of metal glass shattering everywhere. The official report said human error. But Leo knew the truth. It was a logic flaw, an algorithm frozen between two choices, programmed not to choose what was right, only what was optimal. He'd tried to raise the alarm. But who listens to a dropout? He left Caltech, walked away from the spotlight he once stood in, took Maya, just 6 months old, and went searching for a life he could understand and control. A broom, a mop bucket, things that never lied to him. Each night, once Maya was asleep, he'd sit in front of his old laptop, rerunning simulations, rereading the code, not to prove anything, just to understand how a system could kill someone. And no one had to answer for it. Cut to the other side of the city. In the highest office of Ethelgard, Isabella Thorne stood before a portrait of her father. He once told her, "Don't expect recognition. Make them listen." The first time she entered the boardroom after his death, an aging board member patted her shoulder and said, "Your father would be proud." But the tone felt more like a pat on the head. They didn't believe in her, because she was a woman, Because she was young. Because she wasn't him. The Aegis project was everything. A high-stakes gamble to prove she wasn't just an heir, she was a pioneer. But now with the system spiraling into chaos, she faced the same question that had haunted her father. Would she dare to trust her instincts, or would she bow to the numbers, back to the present? She stood across from the man who minutes ago had been mopping the floor. Leo stood tall, too unapologetic, unafraid. They looked at each other, neither said a word, but both carried the same thing inside them, a scar left by a system that had once betrayed them. And now it was getting ready to betray the world. "You have 1 minute," Isabella said, her eyes unblinking. The vast room was now just the two of them. No engineers, no advisors. Only the CEO of Ethelgard and the janitor had broken the silence. Leo didn't walk toward the keyboard. He scanned the room, spotted a dry erase marker on a shelf, an empty glass board on the wall. He picked up the marker and stepped to the board. "All right," he began. "Let's say you want a machine that optimizes energy." He started drawing arrows, circles, input-output factors. "You designed the system like a factory, more faster, cheaper." Isabella folded her arms silently, watching. Leo paused, turned to her. "But you're mistaken." He wiped the board clean, then began again, this time sketching a more complex shape. Interwoven branches. A note, non-linear growth. A symbol for feedback. Another for controlled failure. "It's not a factory, it's a garden." He pointed to the diagram. "You can't force a garden to grow faster. You water it, trim it, and observe it. Most importantly, you give it a reason to grow." Isabella narrowed her eyes slightly. "You programmed Aegis to prioritize efficiency above all. But in the real world, efficiency isn't always what's right." He wrote one final line on the board. "E-Mo-F, human impact, a moral variable," Leo said. A single line of code, forcing it to consider human consequences before making decisions. Isabella stared at him for a few seconds, then turned back to the control panel. Sat down. "I'll run the simulation." Leo stood still, fingers tightening around the marker. The massive strategy screen shifted to a new stream of data. Graphs fluctuated. The power flow steadied. The red zones faded, then turned green. No one spoke. Isabella kept her eyes on the screen a moment longer, then turned back to Leo. Her gaze had changed. No more cold calculation. No more looking at him like just another janitor. She looked at him as an equal. "What's your name?" she asked. "Leo Vance." "Where did you used to work?" Leo hesitated. "Caltech, but that was a long time ago." Isabella gave a slight nod. Then she stood. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Main conference room. I want you there." Leo looked at her surprised. "For what?" She walked out of the room, leaving just one sentence behind. "Help me save Aegis." The white shirt had been freshly ironed, though the collar still wrinkled slightly. Leo adjusted his sleeve as he stepped into Ethelgard's largest conference room. Bright ceiling lights lit up the space. A long wooden table, sleek black leather chairs. The company's silver-plated logo gleamed on the wall. Men in Armani suits and Rolex watches turned to look at him. No one greeted him. No one smiled. Leo took a seat near the end of the table, the outsider's chair. The grey janitor's uniform had been replaced by a dress shirt, but their eyes still treated him like he didn't belong. Isabella entered, hair tied back, navy blazer, sharp, her face serious. "Thank you all for coming. This is Leo Vance, special advisor on the Aegis project." A light ripple of whispers moved through the room. Marcus Cole leaned back, voice crisp. "Special advisor Isabella, this is a joke." The man worked in the basement. Isabella didn't respond. She turned to the lead engineer. What's the core issue with the algorithm? The engineer brought up a chart, stumbling. The system maximizes output, but when the environment shifts, it becomes rigid. Leo raised his hand. Think of it like a child learning to ride a bike. All eyes turned to him. You can't just push it and hope it doesn't fall. You have to run beside it. Hold the handlebars, remind it you're still there. Silence. One young engineer nodded slightly. Another pressed his lips together, saying nothing. Marcus folded his arms, eyes narrowing. We don't run a company on bedtime stories. Leo answered no, but we're building a system that interacts with people. If it can't understand people, it will fail. Isabella looked around the table. No one disagreed. She stood. From today on, Mr. Vance will attend all Aegis meetings. His input is mandatory. Marcus sat up straight, his face hard. You're being reckless. Isabella cut in, voice cold. I'm doing what's right. The air tightened. The meeting adjourned, and people slowly filtered out. Leo gathered his notes, preparing to leave. Isabella passed by him. She said nothing, but her eyes lingered for a second, a slight nod. For the first time, she wasn't standing alone. The coffee machine in the tech wing hissed sharply. Isabella held her cup, eyes locked on her tablet screen. Headline, Ethelgard. Hands, National Security. 2. A janitor's gut feeling. Source, tech leak author, anonymous. She scrolled down the article. Didn't just question Leo, it painted her as out of control. They called her the Ice Queen, gambling with emotions. A notification popped up from her assistant. Pentagon requests emergency briefing. She set the cup down. Her hand trembled slightly. Leo stepped into the hallway on the 14th floor. The stairs came instantly. A group of engineers fell silent as he passed. One turned away, pretending to check his phone. He kept walking, but he saw it all. That evening, Leo was washing dishes. Maya sat at the table, scribbling with crayons. Daddy, she looked up today. A kid at school said you're crazy. Is that true? Leo froze. Soapy suds clung to his hands. No, he said, keeping his voice steady. I just see things others don't. Maya nodded, not quite understanding, then went back to her drawing. Leo sat down, watching his daughter. In that moment, he knew he couldn't walk away. The next day, Isabella's office. She tossed the printed article onto the desk. You saw the piece? Leo nodded. Let me guess, Marcus. She didn't confirm. I'm under serious pressure. Investors want answers. The Pentagon's reviewing the entire project. Silence. Do you want to step back? She asked. I'd understand if you did. Leo looked her in the eye. No anger. Just the truth. They're not attacking me. They're attacking you through me. He paused. If I leave, they win. Isabella didn't react. Leo continued, voice low. My daughter's watching me. Miss Thorne, I can't teach her how to run. For the first time, Isabella's shoulders dropped. Her gaze softened for just a breath. She turned away, but her voice had changed. Quieter. Warmer. I'll protect you, no matter what happens. Leo nodded. No thanks needed. Amid the noise and pressure, they shared a moment of stillness, no longer just CEO and advisor. Just two people holding the line for what's right as the world tried to break them. The Ethelgard auditorium blazed with light glass walls offering a sweeping view of the city. Expensive suits, Pentagon badges, Silicon Valley investors, all eyes were locked on the main screen. Isabella stood beside Leo on stage. She wore a black blazer, hair neatly tied, sharp and confident. Leo wasn't in a suit, just a white shirt and grey slacks, holding the system remote like it was part of his body. A lead engineer began the briefing. Aegis is currently managing the power grid across 17 states, currently operating at 99.96% efficiency. Growth is stable. The screen displayed steady green zones. Graphs pulsed rhythmically. Heads nodded in the audience. Marcus sat in the front row, face unreadable. Now, Isabella announced, we will demonstrate a stress test simulating a large-scale cyber attack on the system. Leo gave a subtle nod. He pressed a button. In the first few seconds, the system responded flawlessly. Data clusters separated and absorbed the simulated attack. The room held its breath. Isabella turned to Leo with a faint smile. Then, the screen started flashing red. At first, a small cluster in the top left corner. Then, the entire West Coast turned amber-orange. The system descended into chaos. Lines of code cascaded down like a waterfall, but not randomly. They moved with precision, in patterns, deliberate. A wave of murmurs spread. Some investors picked up their phones. Pentagon officials spoke into earpieces. Marcus sat upright. The corners of his mouth twitched just slightly. Isabella's face turned pale. "What's happening?" she asked, turning to Leo. Leo gripped the remote tightly. His eyes darted across the code streams. "This isn't right. This isn't a bug." He moved to the auxiliary control panel and began typing. Lines of code flooded the screen, hundreds of variables firing at once. This wasn't part of the simulation. A junior engineer stammered. Leo whispered, "No. This was designed to fail. It's a structured chain." He stepped back, staring at the screen. Then he spoke loud, clear, like a blade cutting through the thick air. "This isn't a malfunction. This is an inside attack." The room fell dead silent. "You sure?" Isabella asked, her voice low. "Absolutely," Leo said. "Someone embedded sabotage code. It's not reacting, it's been scheduled." Isabella's eyes swept across the room. She stopped at Marcus. He sat still, face ice cold. Leo turned back to the keyboard. "I need access to the core system logs." "You don't have clearance," a technician objected. Isabella cut in firm. "I'm giving him my father's access." Leo paused for a second, then nodded. Isabella leaned in, whispering a code into his ear. Omega 0727. Leo entered the password. The screen shifted into deep access mode. The entire room held its breath. A fear no one dared to name was growing betrayal. The room was heavy as lead. Hundreds of eyes locked onto Leo. He didn't hesitate. His fingers danced across the keyboard like time was running out. Lines of code filled the screen, green on black. No icons, no friendly interface. Leo didn't need them. He wasn't chatting with the system. He was speaking to its heart. "Access core logs," he murmured. "Bypass auto-encryption layers. Display manual level 5 commands." A secondary monitor lit up, revealing a list of commands executed over the last 72 hours. Hundreds of lines, but one made Leo freeze. There it is. He enlarged the screen. The command that triggered today's chain reaction. Timestamp 3:17 a.m. User mcole.admin. He turned around, connecting his terminal to the main projector. "The world should see this," Leo said. The big screen behind him switched. The audience now saw the code, short, precise, and lethal. A command string that simulated a crisis, except it wasn't a test. It had a mandatory trigger. No randomness. Leo pointed to the code. "This was designed to activate no matter what. It doesn't simulate risk, it causes it." He hit enter. A log panel opened. The user ID glowed clear. mcole.admin. Silence. Marcus Cole jumped to his feet. "This is insane. He's making this up. I was framed." "No one else has access at this level," Isabella replied, eyes never leaving the screen. "That's impossible. I only enough." Isabella's voice rang out cold as steel. She stepped to the mic. "We've confirmed today's demonstration was sabotaged by an internal actor. This isn't just a breach of ethics. This is sabotage." She turned to the security officer standing near the door. Mr. Cole is no longer a member of Ethel Guard. Remove him. Marcus turned to the crowd, forcing a smile. You all know I did this for the good of the company. He's unstable. He's a hand landed on his shoulder. The guard led him out. Each step tore another shred from the power he once held. The door shut behind him. The room stayed silent. Then murmurs began. Investors whispered. Pentagon officials took notes. Leo stood beside the terminal, breathing hard sweat on his brow. Isabella looked at him, not as a superior to a subordinate, not as a CEO evaluating a staff member. It was the look of one survivor to another. Thank you, she said, quiet, but real. Leo nodded. This isn't over. I know. Isabella straightened her blazer. But today, we won a battle. They stood side by side in the middle of the chaos, saying nothing more, but they didn't need to. They understood. A system had been saved. A plot had been exposed. And for the first time, the truth was no longer buried beneath a mountain of artificial data. 3 weeks later, the new office was labeled Ethics and System Innovation. No fancy desks, no bulletproof glass, just an open space filled with whiteboards, wire models, and tangles of programming cables that looked like a child's messy hair. Leo sat at the center of the room, holding a piece of plastic, assembling something odd with Maya. Her hands were sticky with glue, but her eyes sparkled. You're sure the wing goes on backward like this? Leo asked. Trust me, Dad, Maya said seriously. I learned it on YouTube. Leo chuckled and nodded. All right. Chief Engineer approves. The office door swung open. Isabella walked in, no announcement. No bodyguards, no assistant. She wore a grey sweater and jeans. Hair down, no makeup. You'd never guess she was the CEO of Ethel Guard. Sorry to interrupt, she said, walking closer. I heard there's a material recycling project going on here. Leo looked up. We're building a kite. Isabella sat down without hesitation. She picked up a bamboo stick and handed it to Maya. You're doing great. Want to fly it with us? Maya asked. Isabella nodded and smiled, a rare thing. A while later, the three of them stood on the lawn behind headquarters. A gentle breeze swept across. Maya held the string, the kite trembled, then lifted, wobbling a few times before finding balance. Isabella watched it rise. The board wants to award you something big. Very big. Leo kept his eyes on the kite. I don't want money. Then what do you want? Just a promise. Isabella turned to him. What kind of promise? That Ethel Guard won't forget what happened. That tech isn't just about optimization. It's meant to serve people. It must have a conscience. Like a garden, not a factory. She stayed quiet, watching Maya chase the wind. We'll rewrite our evaluation protocols, add a moral variable to every system, she said, then added, and we'll hire people who ask why, not just how. Leo nodded. That's a new blueprint. The kite soared higher, steady. Sunlight glowed through its paper frame, casting strange shapes on the grass. Isabella stood beside Leo. Her hand brushed his. Not romantic, just recognition. Thank you for not walking away, she said. Thank you for listening, he replied. They looked up together. A system had been saved. But more than that, two people once trapped in memory, once abandoned by the very world they helped build, had found what still remained: hope. Not from the technology, but from choosing the smallest right thing: a word, a belief, a kite, and a promise that this time they'd get it right. The Ghost in the Code isn't just a story about technology or a conspiracy exposed. It's a story about people who had once fallen, been left behind, but chose to rise, move forward, and do what's right. Leo wasn't a superhero. He was a single father ignored by the world. Isabella wasn't cold. She was just surviving in a world where emotion is seen as a flaw. And the kite at the end, it wasn't just a toy. It was a symbol of a deeper belief that sometimes what lifts us the highest comes from the simplest things, honesty, courage, and a promise to hold on to ethics in an age ruled by machines. In a world chasing optimization speed and data, the most important thing might be a person willing to ask why, willing to speak the truth, even from the lowest rung of the ladder. And if you've ever felt small, underestimated, or pushed aside, remember, one moment of standing your ground can shift the course of an entire system. Have you ever been in Leo's shoes, knowing you were right, but no one would listen? Have you ever felt like Isabella carrying a weight no one could really understand? Share your story in the comments. We'd truly love to hear from you. If this video moved you or helped you realize something about yourself, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. Toch's story will continue to bring you more stories like this, small journeys that leave a deep mark on the heart, reminding us all, even ordinary people can make a difference. See you in the next video. And never forget, everyone carries a story worth telling.